Welcome to Retirement Ramblings. I'm Scott, and today is day 129 on my countdown to retirement, plus a quick catch up for day 130. So, yesterday, day 130, I spent the majority of my time compiling and editing a video on my canal cruise through Amsterdam. And for those of you that are interested in watching it, I'm going to leave a link in the description box down below this video. And then my wife continued painting our guest room, and I made baby back ribs and some mashed potatoes for dinner. And then my son and daughter-in-law called to give me their feedback on the Amsterdam video. They had cast it to their television and watched it because they had previously gone to Amsterdam, and it was bringing back a lot of positive memories for them. So that was yesterday. And then today, day 129, I took my wife out to Olive Garden and I got my go-to eggplant parm. So that was my lunch. Then once I finished my work for the day, I listened to the recording I received while I was away on my cruise from the Boldin coach for the coaching session that I had the last week in July. And then I pulled my personal historical rates of return from each of my accounts, and then I went into Boldin and I updated all the items that the coach had suggested during the coaching call, and then I modified all of my one-time costs to not only include projected tariffs from Trump, but also my projected inflation rate between now and when I expect to have to spend the money on the individual one-time cost items, going all the way out until I expect to pass. So I did all that. So one of the suggestions she had made was that I could, instead of doing what I just stated I did, I could go into the recurring costs function of Boldin. I could put the items in there, let's say under travel or some other section, and Boldin would automatically calculate based on the inflation rate that I had and the assumptions, automatically calculate the forward cost of those items based on current dollars today, projecting forward what the future dollars were going to be. The problem with doing that was you can't specify in Boldin, when you do it that way, which account to take the money from. And I care which account is funding different things because I've got my account structure set up that, like, for example, one account is exclusively for travel. So I don't want anything coming out of that account except for our travel expenses. So because I couldn't do that, I went back, did the inflation adjustments and tariffs, and I put each individual item in going all the way out, and it was fine. That being said, when I was done with all the changes that were suggested by the Boldin coach, I went and reran my Monte Carlo simulations to find out where I was. And net, the changes had a huge impact on my chance of success. So, as anybody that's followed me for a long time knows, in my pessimistic scenarios previously, I had a 2% chance of successfully not running out of money in my retirement. So obviously that wasn't a good scenario. And that's because Boldin's pessimistic scenario takes your worst possible rate of return and couples that with the highest rate of inflation and creates, a worst case scenario, and that's what it uses for your pessimistic assumptions. Well, again, mine was horrible because my rates were high on inflation and my return rates were low on the return rate that I was using based on the way Boldin worked. So anyway, when I put the real rates of return in and made all the adjustments, my chance of success went from 2% to high 90% rate, even in the pessimistic scenario. So my level of confidence for being able to retire at year end and not run out of money, went up exponentially. So super happy with the outcome of that. So I still need to go back into Boldin, and now that I know that I have the primary baseline scenario correct, I can create incremental scenarios and run different stress tests and what if scenarios, like what if I don't live to the age that I currently have in the plan and I die, I don't know, 8 years earlier, and my wife then gets put into, a higher tax bracket because she's now, instead of filing married joint, she's filing, single head of household, basically. What also happens when, she then goes on to my Social Security and loses her Social Security. Like all of those kinds of items I can now test, which I couldn't really do before because I wasn't confident that the baseline plan was right. And now I am. So, I didn't want garbage in, garbage out. I wanted, good numbers in so I get good numbers out. So ultimately, that's what I'm going to do over the next couple of days. That being said, for the rest of the evening, I'm probably end up having leftovers for my dinner, and my wife is still in the guest room, kind of finishing up the first coat on all the walls and around the trim and stuff for that guest room. And then once that's done and dry, we'll probably just do one follow-on second coat to make sure that you can't see any roller marks or anything like that. Anyway, that's my update for today. So if you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section down below, or drop me an email at myretirementramblings@gmail.com. Otherwise, I hope you have a great evening, and until tomorrow, take care.